Ratterman,
Here.
Director Dean,
Here.
and Director Zilli.
Here.
Okay, public comment. At this time, members of the public may address the board on any non-agendized item. The public is encouraged to work through staff to place items on the agenda for board consideration. No action can be taken on matters not listed on the agenda. Comments are limited to 5 minutes per person. Any public comment? Seeing none. Move on to consent agenda. The following items are expected to be routine, non-controversial. Items will be acted upon by the board at one time without discussion. Any board member may request that any item be removed for later discussion. Item 3A, approval of minutes for the board meeting of March 12th, 2014. And 3B, ratify claim summary number 505, Secretarial Fund, in the amount of $1,265,344.39 for March 2014.
Move for acceptance. Second.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. Okay, on to item 4, old business. 4A, update of the Western Calaveras County Ag Study. Mitch Dion and Jeff Meyer.
Yes, sir, we're going to thank you. This is okay.
Perfect.
We had a request to update the board of directors for the agricultural study. And so we have some past history and some current history and then some future story to be told. So we'll lay it out that way, and Jeff, you want to take the lead?
Certainly. For those of you who were here when we prepared our 2010 Urban Water Management Plan, part of the process was to identify agricultural uses of our water, to maintain water and to identify the needs going on in the future. We contracted with Provost and Pritchard at that time to do a 2-phased program. The first phase was to create a tech memo based on data that was available at that particular point in time, and one of those is the published information, primarily the County Soil Vegetation Handbook from 1982, interviewing the ag officers, County Farm Bureau advisor, talking to a few farmers and ranchers in the area, just a very high-level preliminary report, taking a look at the county maps and the lands that were actually available, that were not subdivided into homes and such, and coming up with a tentative area of where we could actually expand agricultural uses.
And I'd like to inject here, it was done at a pretty macro scale. So the assumptions were hinged on some real gross types of data graphs.
Mm-hmm. We knew at that time that we need to do a more in-depth research. And though the technical memo, as I mentioned, with the primary impetus behind creating that tech memo was to include it in our urban water management plan and to try to identify how much water we would need in the future, because we went out to 2050, I believe, in the urban water management plan, which is very far-reaching, more than most urban water management plans do. So after that tech memo was written, we looked at creating going into phase 2 of the ag study, which was going to be more in-depth assessment performed by Provost and Pritchard. But they needed partners with this. They wanted to ground truth the work that they identified in phase 1. And part of this process was to develop a list of potential landowners who would participate in a soils and growing conditions survey, going out there in the field, meet with other agencies such as NRCS, County Farm and Ag offices to obtain further contacts and additional soil and crop information. Then they wanted to create a survey and / questionnaire template to go out, and when they meet with these farmers, to have the same set of questions and data requests so that they can compare and contrast. And finally, go out and meet with individual landowners and growers and do those interviews and soil surveys. Well, through this process, our discussions with NRCS shown that they were getting ready to complete or to start a soil survey of Western Calaveras County, something they had not done up to that date. They still had the Tuolumne Calaveras soil survey report to complete. That was on their checklist of things to do. Our contact there was Dylan Bodette. We attended several meetings together, joint meetings. We also brought in Pat Dunn of Dunn Environmental, who was doing our groundwater survey at the time, and we wanted to coordinate efforts. Tom Jeffries assisted us to go out and meet with landowners who, one, we wanted to do soil surveys on their land, and also since they had wells, we wanted to include their wells in our groundwater survey. So this process was ongoing from 2012 through 2013 with the hopes that it was going to be completed last year. Unfortunately, through timing issues and staffing issues, NRCS was unable to complete the survey. They still have a number of areas they need to do soil surveys on, predominantly in the 1226 corridor, the northern portion of the county around Comanche and Calaveras along the McQualamy, and even up into the Murphy's area, along with some areas in Tuolumne. Dylan had told me recently that he's lost 3 staff members who've moved on to other positions. He's hoping to get the line work done this year. But he's severely handicapped by staffing restrictions. All the line work, all the surveys have to be completed first, and then the data will be analyzed and assessed and put into a report published by the U.S. Geological Survey. They are unwilling to provide us with any preliminary information because A, it's in draft format, and B, they wait until everything is complete. Dylan's, and in my view, an optimistic schedule is to have all the line work done this year, and he basically has to do it in the spring because once summer comes around, the soils get too hard for him to dig and do the soil surveys. But if he can get everything done this spring, he anticipates their report to be published next year in 2015. At that point, we are going to circle back and then pick it up again because we need that soil survey information to be able to identify areas that agriculture is actually viable. Because our initial information called by Pat Dunn and his groundwater work is that there's some areas, especially in particular on Highway 4, that have very shallow soils and may not be conducive to farming, maybe just grains land. But more information is coming, and unfortunately, we're waiting on NRCS.
And that's not all bad news, because what's going to happen here next year is we have to update our urban water management plan. We have a good story to tell with due diligence. And so those gross overlays and assumptions that were part of the earlier study are going to be material items that we're going to use in that urban water management study plan. And that's important because ultimately what we're really trying to do is to create a defensible space, if you will, for water that would be needed for future agricultural requirements in Calaveras County. So the early inclinations are with shallower soils out in the western county, large sums of additional water in order to do agriculture are probably not likely to be part of that future out there. So sticking with the more macro look-see may be more useful for us, at least for the short duration until more definitive information is available. Any questions?
Well, thank you for the update. I appreciate that. I'm the one that asked for it. We've been working, especially with highway work order, with the ag people, and we've been telling them about this study now for 2 years. In the last several months of the Winery Association board meeting, they've asked me the status of it. So what I'm really hearing is probably towards the end of the year we may have something.
Next year is when we anticipate, if everything goes well, that USGS will publish their information.
That's if he can do the soil surveys this year, which he's got more to do this year than he can do. My belief is you're not going to see those soil surveys complete this spring.
They seem to have a whole lot of interest in the Salt Springs area, just to give staff they're looking at. They have grapes down there now, and they see that as huge potential for
This study would have nothing to do if there's actually a viable ag proposal for the Western County. This study has no, no bearing on something that might be currently going on if someone's interested in bringing water and putting in infrastructure to move out that way.
I think that they were hopeful that CCWD would be real excited in terms of ag down there, and that they saw us as a partner in some type of their thinking is there's potential in some big ag that could come in and fund the actual process, and we would be able to tag team on top of it. Who's some of the plant-based growers? Well, they have small vineyards now. They're looking into future growth as far as vineyards are concerned. They're buying a lot of their grapes in the Lodi area now, and they see that it's probably a whole lot better to do that in Alvarez County.
And if there's a viable proposal out there, they certainly don't want to wait for this study.
Okay.
One of the things that came out of the Provost and Pritchard study was that the West Indian County had relatively thin soils. And I think what we need to do is we need to wait until NRCS completes their soil survey, because it's never been done to the extent that they're doing it now. And although it's kind of frustrating to have to wait, I mean, most of the vineyards that exist over there in the West Indian County are against the hills where they're sitting on alluvial deposits where they're plenty of soil. But, and actually a fair amount of water because it's coming out of that one small range. But I don't see frankly anything happening down there until we have a clear idea of just exactly what kind of soils we're going to be dealing with and potential availability of water and stuff like that. And I guess, your conversations with the grape growers are going to have to revolve on the fact that this is what they're going to want. They're going to have to help people.
Well, I tell them that. That's why I say they're looking for large partners. They have to go in.
Some of that upshot may be some of the conversations that Ed Rich and I had way back when we were doing the survey and trying to find interest in part of it. Farming, especially the agricultural community to additional water. And there was a lot of interest in it. And we identified 10,000 to 15,000 acres of potential areas for grape growing if there was a little available. And of course we had the water from there, but that's probably the interest of the conversation.
Yeah, they for the last probably 3 or 4 years, because of the economy, everything has been on hold for them. But they see a clear uptick in terms of growth for the wine industry in California. So they're looking to try and keep everything going out of county for their grapes.
The one thing that I think we got to remember is, as I've been telling you guys, there is a creek of agriculture coming up the hill. I've told you guys several times, one point we just completely, that's about 1,000 acres, about maybe half a mile from the county line, all underground line. They put in almonds and grapes. I don't know if you saw the Sacramento Bee article a week or so ago about monitoring, not monitoring, but just what the overdraft is doing to the aqueducts, as far as, there's some areas where it's literally sinking, 10 feet, and it's creating all sorts of infrastructure problems. They're finally starting to talk about, look, we can't pump at this rate anymore. There's got to be a natural push to go up and to do that with surface water. So, we just need to keep that in mind, that ultimately the economics of pumping out of the ground is going to override. And not only just economics, the actual reality of is there going to be water there? That's what's going to push it up there. I don't think our soils are significantly different, and when they are, they have these things called D10s. And they're the soil 10 feet down. And I saw thousands of hours that they put in. They spent millions and millions of dollars developing that 1,000 acres down 106. They had that D10. They had 2 D10s running back and forth for weeks, just ripping that soil. And you could even see some pockets, the hard pan that they just blew right through. And yet, when they planted on those, they actually had to remove some of that because it was that's what's gonna happen. And I know we've talked in the past too about, if there was a likelihood, can we develop a discharge area out of Lower the Junior Wind area for agriculture?
Mhm.
I think that's something we have to think about, is where would we get flow water? Where would we pull it out of the river from? And maybe start to think about what the opportunities are and obstacles to actually serving water in that area. You know, that wouldn't come from our treatment. So,
Yeah, just a couple things. I had a conversation with the Stanislaus County supervisor, and he was saying they've got 13 ag developers right now that are ready to sue them because they're not able to develop ag property on the east side of Stanislaus County because of the groundwater situation. He said, I said, well, we can see those orchards from Calaveras County. This seems real simple to me. And he says, maybe you guys should contact those 13. Maybe they will sue us. I do appreciate it. And could I get a copy, a hard copy of this report?
The PowerPoint?
I got one. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. Okay, moving on, new business, 5A, discussion action regarding calling general district election. This is beyond general meeting.
This is pretty straightforward. I think everyone is aware that we have a general election coming up in November, and hopefully the candidate filing period to be starting on 4th of July. We have to notify the county clerk and the election folks about our election and participate in the expense. So we have a resolution we're asking you to approve, and we will then follow up with the appropriate administrative actions to the election process.
Move for acceptance.
Second.
Any discussion on this item?
One item. What is our cost now that's been consolidated?
We're not quite sure. It was about $30,000 previously. It's probably because now we've got 4 without the energy.
So there wasn't really additional savings for the district as much as for the county?
We would have actually had additional savings, but because we've got 4 candidates as opposed to almost likely to have a little bump up. So yes, there'll be some savings we've seen going forward. This is probably not.
Well, we would, what is the cost?
No, I recognize that the county kind of sold it to us in terms of the cost savings for us.
Probably would have been, we would have to pay the whole
We
freight.
pay the whole fare. So it is cost savings, so ultimately it's a little bit this year more because we've got the cost savings.
Thank you.
And Mitch, brought up another subject there that you might, is there, we're on cycle now, we have four board members for election this year in 2014. Is there a way of getting back on cycle where we're at 3 and 2 every 2 years?
That's correct. The candidate for District 1, I believe, is only have a 2-year term.
Good.
But I Okay, we've got any public comment on this side? No more discussion? We've got a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No, 5-0. Okay, item 5B, discussion action regarding approval acceptance of a planning grant from the State Water Resource Control Board for a regional sludge facility. Mr. William Purley, Director of Utility Services.
I had a conference call the other day with the guy with the bags of money, and he said, we need a resolution passed. We're going to try to get $350,000 for a planning grant for doing a regional sludge facility. We still, Category 1, which means we're still disadvantaged community, which means we're still eligible for 100% principal forgiveness. So just need you guys to say, okay, Mitch can sign the documents, and we'll go for it. And then we also heard some news about the West Point Wilseyville, and that's also eligible for 100% funding too. So they got a bunch of money because we're in Category 1, which is a good category to be in.
I'll move for acceptance.
I'll second.
question, Bill. Who will be our partners in this? Do we have any?
Maybe. That's kind of what the planning grant's to determine. It's to determine if it's, we, originally this thing was going to be county-wide, and that boosted us out of the small communities wastewater grant program, so we made some minor adjustments to my program here. And right now, it's looking at like us and San Andreas are going to look at it, but there's no guarantee. But at the minimum, CCWD has enough facilities that we could probably be categorized as regional on ourselves. I mean, so that's kind of what we're going to go for. And we also, like I said, I conference called them, I looked at their intended use plan, and we fall into the category of disadvantaged communities still. So we're still eligible for grants. I think it's, if your median household income is, if your rates are 1.5% or 2%, you're eligible for up to $4 million. If they're greater than 2% of your median household income, then you're eligible for $6 million. That's kind of where we're going with this. So we'll see what happens. I mean, it's, we got a plan. It's not going to cost us anything. It's the same thing as the West Point Wilseyville plan, and we'll see what the heck it is. At the end of the day, we'll know if anybody else wants to play.
Okay. We have a motion and a second on this item. Any public comment? Any more discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? We have 401. Thank you, Mr. Hurley.
Anytime.
Item 5C, discussion action regarding approval of engineering and design contract with Coleman Engineers for the Overpass Tech-Eyed Water Pipeline Replacement Project, CIP number 11084. Charles Palmer, Associate Civil Engineer.
We've heard a lot about Tech-Eyed pipe in the failure, particularly notable up in Ebbets Pass about Tech-Eyed pipe. And so we thought we should bring you in a piece of Tech-Eyed pipe and show you really what it is. What Tech-Eyed pipe is very thin concrete border liner with a epoxy and fiberglass reinforced shell. As you see, it's almost like cardboard. So the Tech-Eyed product had proven to be an unsatisfactory product. The district, like many other districts, actually had filed against a manufacturer, and many other districts had received settlements. Calaveras County filed a bit too late, and so we didn't receive a settlement for the Tech-Eyed pipe. So ultimately, we have Tech-Eyed pipe. It's failing. It's been the site of numerous failings in the last couple of years, and Charles is about to tell you about what needs to be done.
So yeah, it's in the Big Trees subdivision, and it's on Miko Drive. It's about 8,000 feet long. It's 14-inch diameter, that's a sample of it, and we're going to replace it with 8-inch or 8-inch or 10-inch PVC or ductile iron pipe. And so we got a scope of services from Coleman Engineering to prepare the plans and specs, do the a geotechnical assessment, the CEQA documents, a land survey, encroachment permits, and the schedule will be to prepare the plans and specs this summer and hopefully get it in bid and initial into construction potentially by the end of the summer. Is that?
That's currently the optimistic schedule. I think the more conservative schedule will be probably not quite so aggressive, but that's certainly the aggressive schedule, and that's what's out there for us. So we're asking for your approval to enter into this contract to move forward.
And so moved.
Second. I'd like to make a comment about a little history behind this. The only person here that had anything to do with this at that time, other than myself, was Larry. And the issue was that we had a lawyer down in Bakersfield, I cannot recall his name, who made a living off of this lawsuit. And he came up and made all kinds of promises about how he could produce the whole line up there replaced for free and probably get a little more change on top of that, which was, at that time, it struck me as a little too hopeful. And fortunately, I voted against it, but again, as usual, I lost. And so, as I would extend my reputation as a Don Quixote type of director.
Hence, you're all always cautioning me on the experts coming to sell us stuff. Ultimately, we do have I respect the degree of regard that, when you have these folks come around and they've got something that's too good to be true. Nonetheless, we do have a pipe that we've got to address, and ultimately, we've got this part of the R&R program, and we'd like to execute it.
This came along just as I was getting off the board at that point. I didn't stay on top of it after that, but it was a disastrous effort on our part, and I think we spent a lot of money on that lawsuit to no effect.
One question, or two questions. How many feet of this pipe are being replaced, and are there areas that we have this pipe in the ground at the county?
There's about 8,000 linear feet in this proposal. I'm not aware of any others.
I think that's it. There used to be some additional on Sierra Parkway, but that was already fixed. That section was fixed.
What actually fails? Is it the fiberglass outside, or is it the internal, or is it the installation, or?
The Techite pipe was kind of an interesting system. It was a great idea that it was intended to be a lightweight, durable product, but ultimately, as it saturates, it starts to fry out, and so ultimately you get wear and tear from both sides. It's highly dependent upon a good installation and good bedding, which when you're talking about good bedding in some of these rocks, it just didn't happen. So we've got failures from both directions on this.
For construction? Oh, boy. I think usually we're using about $100 a foot, just as a rough number, so. No, what was that, 800,000? Yeah. Yeah. That would just be a rough number. That doesn't include all the engineering costs, construction management, all those additional soft costs. We do. It's in our R&R program. We have it in there. I just don't happen to have it with me this morning. My apologies.
You got a discussion on this item? Any public comment on this item?
Yeah, just a question. I'm just a little confused about the location of where this is. Is this the pipe running up the Highway 4 corridor?
Right down Nico.
The Vico landing, this Vico.
Okay, it's just a short street type of.
The Vico goes into Big Trees Village off Highway 4 north or east of Dorrington and Camp.
Right at the top.
Dorrington.
It's the highest of our service area.
Thank you.
Okay, public comment closed. All those, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? 5-0. Thank you, Rich. Thank you, Charles.
Thank you.
Item 5D, discussion, action regarding approval to recruit, hire district engineer. Mitch Dion?
As we have been looking at the needs of the district, a year ago we had tried to fund a part-time district engineer. The target of that was in order to start getting our engineering program in line with the capital program that has since come upon us. We realized the need to have a full-time district engineer on staff as opposed to trying to do it with either a part-time person or a contract consultant. So at this point, we would like to go forward in the next fiscal year with a full-time district engineer on staff, and we would like to be able to launch that with a recruitment that starts this year. The likelihood is that this person, if we're successful, wouldn't be able to start till late June or July, and we would have enough funding available within this fiscal year to cover it, and certainly for the next fiscal year, we'll put it in the budget.
We got a motion and a second on this item. Any discussion?
I have a question. It talks in here about the financial considerations. And it goes on to say that district will reflect a reduction by 0.5, cost reduction in budget of 100,000. I'm just curious, I mean, have we included the, what we've been paying Mr. Crowley? So you're saying there's money left over in spite of what we've been paying?
Yeah, ultimately, we've had a employee who would retire at the end of this month, and so that employee was a management position that won't be replaced, so that we have a total savings of about $100,000.
Okay, so that's not associated with the district engineer, with the temporary district engineer?
No, because that was one-time funding specific. So we had a half a time position that we did fund. We used some of that funding to cover the contract services of the consultant that we've been using for the last few months as district engineer. So ultimately, it saves some money out of the O&M budget, and that's a cost avoidance.
From other employees, not associated with the engineering department?
Well, we had a half-time in the as an engineer that was part of our plan this year, so. But as it turns out, the cost of the current employee that's retiring is, approximately the same because of his seniority and all the other perks that he had as what our district engineer position would be.
And so really if we're looking at engineers from one year to the next, there's going to be an increase in what we have budgeted for the engineering spot. And we got a full position next year and a part-time or half-time position this year.
We had a half-time position this year that we'll be eliminating. And so that's really where the savings was. We budgeted $100,000 for a savings for a half-time position. That position, that $100,000 won't be budgeted in the future.
In our finance committee, we discussed R&R work, and my feelings at that time, and I realize this will be a budget item that we'll talk about during budget time, but the district engineer will be predominantly doing R&R work. I'm curious how many, whether it's some employees will be doing half-time R&R, or they'll be doing full-time R&R, or if during budget time, we can look at this in terms of splitting it out so that the actual salaries will not be taken directly out of O&M, but at least partially out of R&R.
Yeah,
Possible?
we, as part of our budget submission, will bring you the resource allocation to the assorted funds that they come from. Yes, correct.
Good.
Okay, any public comment on this item? No further discussion? Okay, we have a motion and a second. We do have a motion and a second. Yeah. Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? 401. Okay, I'll
On April 7th, we had a finance committee meeting. We reviewed the water and wastewater billing process. Was Corinne gave us a report, which
Any other committee? Well, we have an engineering committee, we see several updates on some of the projects that are going on in the district. One of the things that we asked staff to bring back was the proposal to come up with some sort of solution to allow the transfer of water VSFUs to a single-family unit, allow the transfer in same service areas on unimproved parcels. So we look forward to having staff bring that back for the board data.
You see that as a policy change?
The other thing on that was, it was decided that the last meeting, engineering meeting, had to do a lot with the fact that there's just been very little new activity in the county. It had been a year since we've had a previous engineering committee meeting, and now we're going to start taking a look at it every other month.
We also had an executive committee meeting, 30 days, I think we report on it. All right, off committee reports, on to legislative update, item 7. Anyone got, Mitch?
Well, sir, because we do have Pete here, I think there's the current legislation that was introduced. It came as a bit of a surprise on the Moke River, and so perhaps you would like to ask Pete any questions.
No, I want to have it agendized at our next meeting.
Okay. The outside of that, the 5 bond legislative pieces continue to move forward. Ultimately, there's a couple that seem to be the favorites at Aqua, which is the one by Pereira and the other by Rendon. So those are the two we're putting the most effort into continuing to watch. We have a couple other issues that are happening, and if I could jump to one of those, which is going to be the Aqua's groundwater sustainability initiative, and so ultimately that will also probably have a legislative component. So looking at Aqua this summer through their summer program into the fall, and it'll all be about addressing groundwater sustainability in the nexus with land use. So that's it for the legislative update.
I will see you guys at your next meeting. Thanks a lot.
You don't have to go.
No, I got other meetings to go.
All right.
Committee reports, legislative update, okay, Bay Delta issues.
The only issue going on with Bay Delta is DWR is continuing to march forward with the tunnels. They had a little bit of setback with court on the access and whether or not they had initiated the condemnation by their access processes or not. They're continuing to move forward regardless of that. Outside of that, in the Delta, they're taking extraordinary actions now to deal with salts and the movement of saline through the Delta. And so the management of the Delta is really gone from a theoretical to what's really going to happen when you have inadequate flows in the Delta to address the saline line. Quick, because I think most folks are getting used to seeing this. It's the drought monitor, the going forward projection. Unfortunately, those darker reddish colors are not favorable. And so you can see how the likelihood of California to remain into a drought for the extended period of time is it's going to be severe. That has to be tempered a little bit because we're going into the summer, and our summers normally are a drought. So partly when you look at the analysis here, you have to temper it a bit. But the fact of the matter is we do have a very limited snowfall. Here's the snowfall as currently early April. You'll see at the Central Sierras we're about 40%. But for the most part, not radically different than that extraordinary dry year of 77. So I like to always remind people this is 10 years worth of graphing. An average where we look at the blue shading, an average is just an average, it's a statistical number. We're always above, always below, very seldom on average. But we've had a few more recent years, the last more recent years are all been on the less than average side. So that has the compounding effect for not having water and water resiliency in the system. Your reservoir levels are sitting in the high 70s for the most part across the Northern California. So that's what that picture looks like. This was a new graph I hadn't shown you before. This was actually the rainfall at New Hogan to show you the implications of what we had for the last 2 weeks of March predominantly. It went from just over 7 inches to over 10 inches in a matter of about a week and a half. So that was significant. That really changed the amount of water in the system, since that was an important rainfall event. Maybe a little bit of an eye test here. This is just more background data. You all have this in your printouts. Just trying to give you a better picture of how the water resource in our 3 watersheds play out this year. Again, we have adequate water supplies. We're going to continue to talk about smart use of water stewardship, and then ultimately the concern is what happens with another year of drought. Here's the monthly capital renovation and replacement fund report, and Jeff will help us with that.
We're looking at the water capital R&R fund summary, and this is similar to what I presented at the engineering committee and again at the finance committee, but I wanted to show it to the full board. The revenue totals are what has been billed through March 31 of this year, and the expense side is similar. So as you can see, we've collected about $926,000 in R&R rate revenues. On the expenditure side, we've got several projects that are incurring costs. The Ebbets Pass Reach 3A, which is in the design phase. Jenny Lynn Clearwell, we're not really seeing the full cost of the work because we're always in arrears a little bit. And I just want to caution everybody on all our projects, because they bill in arrears and then we pay after several, we have 20 days to pay. So they may do work 6, 7, 8 weeks ago. It still may not show up on our billing as of this time. They've got a little bit of work on the ozone generator. They're still waiting for the components to show up for that. I believe they're looking at a May start time for that process. It was a 6-month order period for the generator components. Tank management plan, they've started work on that, and again, but we don't see any billing. And then Reach 1, they've started a little bit of work on that as well, some of the design work. Staff time going out and starting to get a little field work done. So bottom line here, there's $125,000 worth of expenses paid. Incurred is probably at least 2 times, 3 times that amount. We just haven't paid the bills yet or received them. Right now there's about an $800,000 balance at this particular point in time. We probably have a significant portion of that already encumbered on contracts. On the wastewater side, we have a little less flexibility, and that's because we're collecting less revenues on the wastewater side than we are on the water side. As you can see, to date, we've collected just over $319,000. That $28,000 is funding from our operations capital outlay project fund, or regular O&M. That was basically for the Millwoods project. To date, we've incurred paid bills totaling $297,000. Only leaves us with a balance of just under $50,000. However, when we look at the costs associated with lift stations 9, 10, and 11, there's a good $60,000 plus that we have invoices on our table that have yet to been paid. Bottom line here that I really want to focus on is if those bills had been paid during this time frame, we'd be zero or negative in this fund at this point in time. The reason I state this is because it's critical that we move ahead with our loan program. And I want to give an update on that just when I'm complete here so we can show you the progress we've made there. But the projects we're working on, lift stations 9, 10, and 11, we're getting close to completing those. Is that correct, Mitch? 9, 10, and 11?
9 and 10 are complete with the exception of the asphalt.
Okay.
None is under progress. It should be done in about
2 weeks. So we're moving ahead on those. Little bit of design work on or review work on lift station 22, and the Millwoods tie-in phase 2 will begin once they've completed the lift station 11. So if are there any questions on either of these two charts? Yes, Don.
Our tank management plan, I'm curious if it's going to be completed in time to be utilized within H3A engineering, since
I think they kind of coincide as far as pump stations and things like that.
Yes, they are, and the early analysis will in fact be used for the affirmation of that design, yes. HDR.
As an update on the loan, we are planning on closing next Tuesday, April 15th, tax day. There's been a lot of back and forth between the financial institution and ourselves and our advisors. This is, it's been an arduous task. I'll leave it at that. But we're moving ahead. We stuck to our guns. They basically, everything that they've stated in their bid proposal is holding true. And by next Tuesday, we should have the funds available to us. And that'll really help us, especially in the sewer side, because obviously, as you could tell, we don't have that many funds remaining, and we're not getting a whole lot of funds on the sewer side. In one billing cycle, it's about $38,000, the other's about $66,000. So over 2 billing cycles, we're basically looking at about $100,000. So it really doesn't provide us with the money we need to move forward, especially on the larger projects. On the water side, with these design projects going ahead, we're going to be using a significant portion of our revenues, and we're setting aside money for those construction projects as they become available. And that's all I have.
That was part of the general manager report. Anything further, Rick? Yeah, we are going to go ahead and just kind of walk on a couple of these. Stacy's been a little bit busy. We've had 2 retirements in April. And we also have a number of recruitments that have been going on and happening, so this is just a bit of an update. We do have human resources effective reviews going to go this afternoon, as a matter of fact. Water resource program manager, we went through a recruitment process. We've had a number of interviews, and for a variety of reasons, not come up with a successful candidate. Community relations, customer service manager, I think we can introduce him. He's in the back of the room. To some, he needs no introduction, but Joel Metzger is our community relations customer service manager, and he'll start in July.
welcome.
Thank you. Looking forward to it.
We have our auditor controller position filled. She happens to also be in the room. Patty is with us. She'll report out next if she does. The customer service rep, we had an in-house promotion for the contact, which a vacancy in customer service rep. As all positions happening, we're reviewing the job requirements of that, perhaps do a little bit of redesign on that job description before we get recruitment in place. District engineer is just approved, so we're going to be moving forward with that recruitment The couple other things are happening out in the water world. California Water Code 2013 final ammonia criteria for the protection of fresh water to water flow. That is now being promulgated. That's a big deal. I can give you the Reader's Digest on it, but ultimately, anyone with an NPDES permit can have to deal with ammonium nitrate removal, and that can be extraordinarily expensive to take care of, particularly on these smaller facilities. So as we've moved from the NPDES to the irrigation orders, we hope to see some cost avoidance as a result of that. So ultimately, the timing seems to be very good that we're out ahead of it. I mentioned groundwater sustainability. That's going to be a big push for Aqua. Ultimately, it's going to a place where water agencies have not been comfortable before, which is addressing the land use nexus. We've got a couple of bylaw amendments we'll talk about next month with a little bit more detail. They're not particularly meaningful in my read of it, but we're going to keep you updated on those. The JPIA conference is 5-6 May, Aqua conference is 6-8 May, and those are both meeting on our May. Any questions? That concludes the agenda.
Very well, thank you, sir. The Commissioner Christensen, Auditor Controller report.
I have nothing to report.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
Look, I got to lean into it because it's very important that we have established this position as auditor control. Because ultimately, in the world of transparency and accountability, I think her focus there is going to be key. And it all gets back to validating that we're doing what we say we're doing and having the confidence that our numbers are in fact what they are. There's this thing about statistics and liars. Ultimately, we want to be very accurate. I think the auditor controller is a key role in making sure that we have achieved that transparency. So she's got a big job, and I appreciate her help.
Okay, thank you, Patricia. Jeffrey Meyer,
Nothing more at this time.
Bill Furley,
Just a wealth of knowledge.
here he comes again.
I'm going to walk all the way up. You guys get crummy cookies today, so I don't know why I stayed. Okay. So I talked to the guy with the bag of money this week, and it looks like the Disadvantaged Communities, Small Communities Wastewater Grants Program is still in play. So we're going to be submitting a planning grant, our final documents in for West Point, Wilseyville. We're going to be looking at getting a construction grant for probably around, I don't know, $4 million. We're eligible for 100% grant on that. We're probably going to, right now it looks like we discontinue the use of the Wilseyville plant and we pump everything over to West Point and upgrade the West Point plant. That solves two problems. The present situation we have, both the West Point plant and the Wilseyville plant permits would both have to be upgraded, which means that both plants would have to be upgraded. But we have the opportunity to pick up 100%, so that's what we're going to be going for. The SRF program is a continuous program. It goes on forever. It's just, we need to stay in the disadvantage or we can't compete with these guys. So that's one thing that's really going on. The regional sludge, like you said, we made some adjustments to the original program there to make sure we fall into the small communities grants program. There's a 20,000 population limit on that, so you got to be careful of adding people, and that's a big no. And once you go over that, then you start competing against Sacramento and Los Angeles, and that's not a good thing. The USDA project right now, as soon as we get the paperwork in, you can, that's the thing, is a continuous project. Whenever you submit your paperwork is when they process it, and then we start the negotiations on the grant. He always says loan grant, I always say grant loan, but that's kind of, I've heard this speech about 1 million times, but that's how USDA is. And then the big thing we got going on today, as a matter of fact, we're going to be tying Saddle Creek in the raw water feed line, and we're going to be testing that. And that means that we'll be feeding raw water directly to the wetlands down there. And the reason why we need to do this is because there's an organization called CV Salts running out there right now, Central Valley Salts. And they're cracking down on any type of nutrients, with nitrogen, for example, and salts in this basin here. And what they're doing, in 23rd, there's a meeting with the regional board talking about requiring everybody to do ammonia and nitrogen removal in the system. And that takes the Copper Cove plant from being about a $6 million project up to about a 12. If we can get rid of the recycled water going into the wetlands, which hopefully we'll have it done today, we'll do a verification, we'll get the state out the next week, we're down to maybe a $2 million upgrade on that plant. And that's a real big thing. But it looks like it works. We found a pipeline. We don't have to dig up the 9th hole like we originally thought we had to do. So that's like our biggest thing that's going on out there right now. If that works, then we'll get the regional board out to do the verification, and that'll get us out of the NPS game, and we can go back to getting water to the golf course. Because we got 2 TSOs, so you get till 2017 to get that. But that's all we really have going on out there. I'm probably going to be shutting down Copper Cove this week. I'm a little mad at them, because they just called me out of this thing here for a second. It's a joke, but you never know. It might not be a joke one day. But no, it's oh no.
Go ahead. We were talking in a meeting here, I guess it was this week, about hazards and trying to prepare for them. And I know we have plans in place, but I'm concerned this year with fire hazards. It's going to be, it sounds like it's going to be a bad year.
Yeah.
What CAL FIRE said. I'm wondering when you anticipate starting construction on the replacement of the 2 FEMA tanks?
We can do it any time right now. We already got the money for it. We got our obligation money. We also got the money telling us to go ahead. We can start anytime we want.
When do you anticipate starting that? Is it going to be here for fire season?
No.
Now that we know the process, can we continue going in?
Oh, with the NOIs?
For additional?
Oh, yeah, you can, some of these, George Bush Jr. is the one that put this back in play. So they get the pre-disaster mitigation money. So that, you can apply every year. It's around July or August. You put in an application, notice of intent. You explain to them what you want. I think last time we did it was a $3 million cap, but we can do it. I mean, you can send it in and you go through the process. We have an updated hazard mitigation plan, and as everybody knows, this county here has a 100% chance of a disaster happening every single year. So we get us a lot of points. We lose on the population side, but we win on the fact that we're a disaster.
Last question. By combining West Point, are we going to save on permit fees?
Oh yeah, what we're trying to do right now is we're trying to eliminate. If we don't do anything, they're going to come up and they're going to take both of the permits. They were in like 97, I believe the permits were issued. They're going to make us get a 2014 permit, which neither one of those facilities can meet right now, I'll guarantee. So you're looking at least $4 million on each shot, bringing it up to modern standards. What's going to happen now is we had conversations with the regional board. What we will do is we'll have the same thing we're going to do at Millwoods. We're going to have the Millwoods permit rescinded because, in effect, Millwoods doesn't exist. So what I was planning on doing was, I'll give you Millwoods as an example. I'll have that permit rescinded. Then what I'll do is I'll have an amendment written to the Arnold permit including the leach fields, because Millwoods doesn't exist, so Arnold will be an overflow, or the leach field will be an overflow. What's going to happen on Wilseyville is we will abandon the existing facilities, put in a pump station, run a line over to West Point, and treat all the wastewater over there. West Point has some problems in it. It has a 40-year storage. The new requirements are 100 years, so we're out of compliance on a bunch of stuff over there. So by doing what we're doing here, both areas qualify as a DAC. I mean, their income is way less than 60%. The rates are way above whatever, so we're eligible for probably $6 million there, cash, 100%. So that's what we're planning on doing right now. And that's what I was talking to those guys the other days about in Sacramento. And they said, okay, and I also am trying to get $2 million for San Andreas Sanitary District, which I know you guys are really interested in. It's on everybody's topic, but that's kind of what's going on. The DAC program is still 100% in effect. It's a continuous program. The federal government has mandated that the state of California set aside money for the DACs, and that's what we are. So we got to stay over there. And it's the same thing, the USDA. We're a rural community. We got to stay in that category. We're never going to get out unless Castle and Cook quadruples the size of this county here, so we will be rural forever. And that program is a continuous program that'll go on forever. You can get the money whenever you get around to asking for it, and that's the way it works. That's about all I get to say, but maybe I'll turn copper back on. I'm not sure yet.
Just a comment, tag on to that. When I worked for California Rural Water, down in the Central Valley, primarily, I worked with a lot of disadvantaged communities, and they fully qualified for all this information, but they never had the expertise behind them to do any of this stuff. They're actually more deserving than what, say, we are, but because they don't have good engineering, good staff behind them, they really are on the back end of this thing, and they fully qualified, but they can't seem to quite make it happen.
No, they can't. That's one of the things that we can do is you're right, we do know how to do this. We're very successful at it, but most of the other the reason why there's so much money in that pile is because nobody else can ask for it. Like we said, I think last year they gave away $7 million and we got 4.4 of it. So, I mean, we're pretty good at getting the money, and we know all the people down there. We've known them for years, ever since we get the $9.7 million for San Andreas Sanitary District. So, not CCWD, San Andreas did, but everybody's been kind of following along, and, you know, we've developed such a good relationship with those people down there that it makes things a lot easier for us. And, you know, and even, like I said, the Arnold thing kind of caught me by surprise that it was eligible for 45% grant money, which was like, okay. So, but actually, it looks like USDA actually funded some housing up there, which I didn't even know about, but when we took a ride up there, that's actually what we found out, so.
Good job.
We'll try. It's, what do you think, copper on or off? Let's take a vote here. That's all I get. And the turf at Lock and Tender is green. We've had enough water. They haven't used our water yet. We're gonna have to go talk to Marty and see what he wants to do, but, you know, we're going to run that pond out of water for sure this year, our storage pond. We just don't, it just isn't that full. And Saddle Creek is going to blow the doors off us like they always do. So Saddle Creek empties our pond every year, so we have no problem down there at all.
Great, thank you, Bill. And I would like to commend Bill and staff for the work on the grants, and that is a huge deal. It does help out every year. Thanks, Bill. Agenda item number 10, board reports, information, future agenda items. We'll start at this end, Mr. Dooley. Any reports?
Well, I'm going to let you report on the ad hoc committee for highway board.
You move to, I have nothing to report.
Director Dooley and I have been working diligently as the Township Ad hoc Committee, and we hope to have a report to the next board meeting. I'll talk to you about agendizing probably next week. Also, March 2nd, we have an EMOC meeting in Arnold, and let's see, Mr. Clary was there, Waterworks was there, and Mr. Dion was there to make a presentation. They did an exceptionally good job. I've had nothing but really good comments, and because of the timing issues, after their presentation, there was only a few minutes left before the next meeting, so they didn't get beat up hardly at all after the presentation. So the timing was perfect. So I felt like that went really, really well. The fourth, Mountain County's brought DWR up to the hills to discuss the new PSPs that were released the day before regarding round 3 funding, which is really the governor's stealing the round 3 money and then giving it back under the idea of this drought money. So the drought money is going to be available. Probably we'll get the PSP finalized, and we'll be looking at it this summer, and by the end of the year, everything will be places that are drought related, and there's like 13 different components to that. And they want things that are close to shovel ready. The government wants results from this $250 million real fast. One of the caveats, and I think we're the only mountain county that has a groundwater basin, but if you haven't kept up with CASGen, you are not eligible. So I don't know who does our CASGen here, but we want to make sure that that's all completely up to snuff. And the other key component is any drought projects, they don't have to be part of past projects that we've already got into our plan. So if we have new projects that are drought related, we can add them to this drought relief package. It sounds like it's moving so fast that we have a real opportunity to get some serious money out of this $250 million, just because we're a little bit more nimble than a lot of the other big IRWMs. They tend to take a long time to process everything. They're on a real track that takes time. So if we can be real quick, I think we can be successful both on T-stand and the MAC. So I'm real excited about that. At that meeting, we had the top OES people from the governor's office just showed up. They weren't invited or anything else, but they are extremely keen on working with county OES in order to identify some of the small water companies, which we have about 40, I guess, in the county. They've predominantly been focused on Tuolumne County because they said there were 100 in Tuolumne County, which staggered me. I thought we had a bunch. But they're real nervous that these people are part of the process, and they don't even know the agencies that are involved. So they're real interested in coming to Calaveras County and having meetings with the smaller groups through OES. So I anticipate that coming. The deadline was extended for submitting storage projects to the 11th. This is where Delta Stewardship Council went to the Water Commission and said, we need small water storage projects. And so they handed it off to Aqua. Aqua has sent out a questionnaire. It's about a 3-page yes, no, I like it kind of a review, just looking for any projects that might be viable. Most of the projects they're seeing are projects that aren't cost effective, because if you have to pay for it, the money doesn't, the money, the dollars won't work out financially. But if the state is paying for it, then they're going to get the storage. And so I'm real curious how this is going to roll out. And I'm really hopeful that we'll have 1 or 2 projects that could be successful in this process. As the summer goes on, I think the state is going to get more and more focused on this kind of stuff. Right now, they seem to be all they can talk about. And that's all I've got.
Can I get her back on that? Because of my work with California Rural Water Association, the number blew my mind when I was first told that there are 9,000 permitted water agencies in California. And of those, the vast majority are under 200 connections. And of those under 200 connections, the vast majority are incapable of accessing this stuff because they just don't have the support and the expertise.
That's what we're worried about.
Thank you, Mark. Paul, you record reports?
A little back to your local class on the 26th.
Richard Davidson? Okay. All right, that completes our board reports. Item 11, next board meeting, Wednesday, April 23rd, 2014, 9 a.m. right here in this room. And that's for a board workshop. And Wednesday, May 14th, 2014, 9 a.m. with